Welcome everyone to the second part of the recaps of A Tale of Turmoil. Make sure you've seen the first part, otherwise this isn't going to make a whole lot of sense. I'm just gonna pick up right where I left off. So, Varys did a little research and found out that one paladin of Ilios, Rose, had a minstrel for some reason, with a known location. He was last seen in the lovely and aptly named ghost town Demon Pond. In the 6-day journey that follows, the group gets to know each other a little better, as Varys and Crow share tales of their grim pasts, and Myrmia shares the story of her father, who died in a glorious explosion. His death was celebrated more so than mourned. Palamin, secretive as always, shares nothing, and even spreads more confusion by referring to himself as Frank. Palamin did get a test from Lyros, however, that required a personal sacrifice. He passed, and Lyros agreed to become his mentor. He was a little bored anyway. Demon Pond isn't entirely deserted. There's one building that still houses people, the crappy inn, filled with bounty hunters and people who live off of them. They find a minstrel who tells them he followed Rose around in her glory days, but at one point she snapped and went on a bit of a killing spree. He saw her a couple years later, but she had changed. She now hangs around the old church to Ryderin on the hill, but that will be the only living thing there. They rightfully feel very unwelcome in this town, and they decide to check out the church at night. Yeah. Inside they find Rose battling with a two-headed demon 3 times her size. The beast opens its mouths and the party is about to be engulfed in flames, but Rose shields them from most of it. She tells them to go down a crack in the floor that ominously glows red. They take out all sorts of horrors down there, and Crow strikes down a fiend that wielded a black dagger. Myrmia finds a large pool of blood and bombs it, collapsing the floor above, and the demon disappears in a large gaping hole to nothingness. Rose gives Varys her sword, saying that she got it from Ilios himself, and that it will lead him to his personal demons. After doing that, she jumps after the demon into the void, with the ancient and dangerous artifact. Crow's black dagger is truly something special, which he finds out after spending some time with it. It's called the Eternal Conflict of Avius, and can take 2 forms, based on his type of rage. Either a deadly dagger that steals the life essence of his victims, or a 2-handed warhammer that sometimes allows him to spawn wings of light, healing his allies. It represents the conflict of Avius, the ancient giant who was created from a piece of Ramual and Ibnir, and defied both. After another 7 days they make it back to Kortuda, where they find out the queen had a beautiful daughter, Princess Harmonia. The king, however, still ill, suspects that they in fact had a son, and the queen swapped him with another child. Even though Kortudans would accept a female heir, the migrated Imperials surely would not. The party is dropped right into a political scheme, because should the king not produce a suitable heir, the kingdom of Castanos will become part of the Imperium. The queen asks you to go to the front lines of the war with the Kingslayers, but you suspect she is simply trying to get rid of you. You speak to Lyros, who doesn't seem too thrilled about the whole political mess. He doesn't seem to like the Imperials very much. Varys speaks to a cleric of Ilios and learns a vital clue about his family. A former cleric of Ilios wore a tattoo that his new sword now shows. The old cleric supposedly moved to Steborg, an imperial city. A tournament will be held in Kortuda in 5 days, and they decide to spend some time in the city. They weren't going to just hang out in a bar, however. First, they worked a bit on their weapons and armor, as Varys got clad in full plate, Crow worked his muscles, Palamin his mind, and Myrmia created Binky Mark II, an abomination of a construct that actually holds up well in combat. They follow up many leads on the lost son of Kortuda, but come up short at first. They tried orphanages, the midwives on duty, and even just following around people. They visit Lord and Lady Taldaris, who had twins the same day the queen had her baby, and while Lord Taldaris seems to be quite anxious, that turns out to be because he was up for promotion. The queen makes the birth of her daughter public, which is received with mixed emotions from the crowd. She announces that the planned tournament will be held in her honor, and prizes will be greatly increased. You convince Lyros to disguise himself as Crow, to confirm that the daughter is in fact a fraud. He reluctantly agrees and confirms your fears. Varys suspects the king will be the target of an assassination soon, and he decides to betray Palamin and accuse him of the crime in order to lure out the actual assassins. This raises the queen's suspicion, of course, and as she summons Varys to have a heart-to-heart, she explains that with the Kingslayers, she truly believes that becoming a part of the Imperium is the only way for Castanos to survive, and that Varys can either cooperate and keep up appearances, or be executed for treason. Palamin will be stuck in a cell for a couple of days, though Crow and Miramia disagree with Varro's methods. Leros, learning of the Queen's plan, goes mad. He tells the party to join the tournament and don't waste their strength. He has a plan. Paris prays to his god, trying to save Khottudan's sovereignty, and his new sword actually shows an unknown face. He asks Leros to scribe for this face, and it shows the man in a local inn. Purely coincidentally, Crow is drinking in the inn at the same time. After some struggles, the group convinces the man to give up the charades, and they find out that the lost prince was being kept in the slums of Khottuda, with a family that really only cared for money. You bring back the prince to the king, and he names him Alexander. You decide Alexander cannot stay here, as it wouldn't be safe, and you settle on Graswick, and hope Princess Elena, the king's sister, will be his guardian. Paris has a bit of a moment with Elena, but he fears that's more on his side than on hers. Back to Leros' plan, Palamin gets a little uncomfortable and prepares an exit strategy, the details of which are fuzzy to everyone but him and John, the stable hand, who is to supply them with clothes and horses. Crow gets contacted by his guild about some strange artifacts near Renkasal, but they seem new instead of ancient, and there's many of them. He is to retrieve them from this now mage hunter-infested city before the Imperial army arrives to reclaim it. The king summons Varys one last time as he takes his final breath. Varys, though nearly in tears, notices something exiting his late king's mouth, however, and picks it up. Miramia later confirms this to be a construct, and they discover something quite disturbing. The fuel in it looks a whole lot like an early prototype of Miramia's. With the king dead, the queen announces to the citizens that they should fear not, since Castanos now belongs to the Imperium, the greatest kingdom in the world. As you can imagine, this caused quite an uproar, but in the end it settled down as the people get ready for the grand tournament. Leros, the wizard, once more tells the party to simply play along for this tournament and wait till the end. They weren't going to miss the greatest tournament of the year anyway, as Crow wrestles and catches a pig, and the rest partakes in events like archery, drinking, arm wrestling, and the main event, jousting, where you meet Eleanor Laughingsteel, the female cavalier who never took off her helmet but went on to win the entire thing. As Crow attempts to put his moves on her, the feast is rudely interrupted by none other than Leros as he appears on stage, playing his signature piano. A ring of vibrating colors appears, and he asks the champions of Khottuda to step inside, all they who wish to join in this harmless event. The party soon finds out that harmless was a bit of an overstatement, as Leros summons wave after wave of fighters made of colors held together by magic. Although they do not bleed, the party does. In the meantime, the guards attempt to arrest Leros, but he turns out to be just a projection. After a few rounds of fighting, Leros speaks to the crowd and reminds them of a glorious battle long ago. The Battle of the Wild Earth, where magic and the environment helped hold off the infamous blackguards. He goes on to recreate this scene with the party and a few others standing on a beach and a fleet waving the red crown and chains on a black field approaching. Palamin in particular feels invigorated by the words of his mentor and grasps the palpable magic from the air and strikes down several ships. The rest follow, wielding magic like they never have before, sometimes to great effect, sometimes not so much. Some of the blackguards manage to more, however, and they rapidly approach the party. They stand nearly 7 foot tall and carry massive axes. One of them, however, seems to be a lot smaller, and they seem to be moving involuntarily. It is this one who is eventually targeted by Palamin, in self-defense, as he boils them in their armor. When they fall to the floor and the helm comes off, it becomes clear that Palamin just killed Queen Fridegunde. The first thing he does is go invisible, and we see Leros smiling, putting his hands beside him and shooting rays of color in the sky. When they reach their apex, they explode in a colorful explosion, and as the dust settles, all of Khottuda feels the magic, and many of them try to use it. As you can imagine, utter chaos and panic break out as the mostly Imperial guards try to make sense of the situation and keep it under control, but they are forced back towards the palace. Palamin invisibly makes it to John, the stable hand, and eventually Crow and Miramia do as well, after picking up Eleanor and Zaz, weaving the magic in the air to make a large sky bridge. Varys, however, is in total shock and he slowly walks towards the palace. He doesn't make it before the crowd, however, and he can't get in. Out of ideas, he decides to try and use Leros' magic as well, to create a portal inside the palace. He actually manages to tear the fabric of the planes, but then he falls in, and we don't see him again for a while. Polemin receives a cryptic note from Lyros, telling him to solve a riddle which will lead him back to him and explain his dark secret. Eleanor now removes her helmet and turns out to be quite beautiful. John, slightly less beautiful on the outside, forces himself on the party now that they basically told him the city is doomed. The party is at the gate of Cortuda now, still waiting for Varus, who hasn't shown up. After 10 minutes or so, they notice there's no more fireworks in the sky. The magic seems to have died down, and Polemin feels something being scribbled in his book. As he takes a look, he sees "Help" hastily written. Moments later, they find half a mask on the ground, crackling with purple electricity. Polemin recognizes it as Lyra's mask, or what's left of it, and feels the electricity draining his energy as he touches it. They decide they cannot wait for Varus much longer, as the guards will probably be looking for them soon. They decide to head out to Renkasal to 1. Retrieve the artifacts for the guild, and 2. Get out of Castanos. On the way to Renkasal, they pass through a large forest that is said to be riddled with all sorts of creatures. They're not supposed to be hostile, but nobody really wants to find out. They passed through these woods a few times already so far, and each time they've been watched, but not attacked. This time, however, something stops them. It's Erla, a half-elf cleric of Foros, the deity of art and beauty, and the father of the first king of Castanos. She asks for the party's aid as she's seen the forest being destroyed from within. The party is hesitant, they have their own issues, until she mentions a dead paladin bearing the mark of Ilios, which they instantly suspect is Varus. What they find is rather disturbing. There is no forest at all, it's a barren wasteland at least a mile across. The trees have been destroyed, drained of their essence, and turned a dull grey. They do indeed find the dead body of Varus, lying amongst a pile of broken statues or constructs resembling the ones at the university. Then they hear a strange rhyme all around them. Little did the young one know, his raving prayers not just show. Give me power, give me strength, I have suffered hurt at length. Show me now the magic true, I promise I will repay you. Quickly then the tyrant struck, now poor Palladius out of luck. They meet Palladius, which they find is a divine descendant, though he seems horribly malformed and demented. They also find Lyros on the floor with his mask removed. The party had never seen his face, and they sort of wish they never would. Apparently the mask is not just because he is super edgy, it's to hide his disfigured face. Miramia uses her alchemy kit to crudely but ultimately successfully extract another one of the tiny construct 5-legged spiders from Lyros' throat, and he wakes up. Lyros so far had been a very cocky, self-centered, asshole. His motivations lined up with the party's, but nobody really liked him, besides Polemin, who instantly hugs his mentor as soon as he wakes up. Now though, he is a humble man, and an honest one at that. He explains that he is a demigod, the youngest of his siblings, and that his powers were drained by some sort of strange purple electricity. Thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of the little 5-legged spiders were consuming the forest, and he stopped them until they took his powers. As he tries to explain more, large objects fall from the sky. When the dust settles, 6 more of the animated armors and 1 humanoid also clad in purple and grey armor appear. Without much emotion, he says, "You should have let him be. Time to die." The party nearly suffers a fatality, but they dispatch of the constructs and man eventually. The man didn't carry anything except a crudely drawn map, perhaps more of a trace to follow the path they took. It appears to lead just north of Renkasal, so that's convenient. Now, with some more time, Lyros answers their questions, and he explains that his oldest brother, Zyranok, could do no wrong. In his jealousy, Lyros made a deal with Ardain, the tyrant, an evil god. The curse brought him to his siblings would last forever, and it turned his brother Zyranok into a statue, which many to believe just a statue. As the party makes their way to Renkasal, they are stopped by Imperial guards who recognize them from a pamphlet that was hastily drawn and sort of resembles their faces. The charges? Regicide. As they're about to be arrested, the party decides to strike down the guards, and they swiftly kill them. Crow flies into a rampage as his dark rage and black dagger feast on these Imperials. As their life essence flows into Crow, he feels stronger, but the last one takes his toll, and he falls to the ground. In a vision, he sees little more than black, and then 2 humanoids fighting before he is woken up. The group decides to set up camp and send their companions, Zaz, Eleanor, and John, into Renkasal the next day, assuming they wouldn't be recognized. In the morning, some tearful goodbyes and a hug of true friendship between John and Polemin prelude what will become a dark day. First, however, they set out to follow the trail on the map, and they find black obsidian and metal shards lying everywhere. At some point, they find a mage hunter wearing the typical tattoos and oversized weapons and muscles. They attempt to pass without violence, but fail, and much blood is shed. They then find a cart and a mule with a single mage hunter, whose head they bash until he goes down, and put his unconscious body on the cart. Back to the trail, they find it culminates in a gorge filled with sand. Parliament cleverly uses his magic to blow away some of it, and they find a large circular building of sorts made of the same metal and obsidian. As they go inside, they find many small rooms and eventually the body of a man after clearing out some rubble. They find a couple vials filled with fuel that smells a lot like Miramia's prototype, a note of Commander Damiron, presumably the dead guy, telling that he's been left behind by his men who went to recharge and never returned, and that he never meant to land this far off. A piece of paper with coordinates, but no map to compare them to. The only live thing they find here are rust-eating bugs the size of dogs, which prove to be quite annoying. And this is where the Dark Age ends and the recording starts. So do you want to know what happened to their friend, lover, and potential lover, or what will become of Lyros, the demigod who lost all his power? Is the true Prince of Castanos still even alive? What happened to the rest of Vera Clavis, the faction of scaly kind? What are these strange objects and where do they really come from? Why haven't we learned anything about the Kingslayers? Are dragons really extinct? Answers to all of these questions and more can be found in the VODs here and our live stream every Thursday 7:15 PM CEST on Twitch. So please check us out, and of course if you liked the video, leave a like, subscribe, spread the word. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time.